Well, hello everyone, as if I'm talking to anyone. My name is Stefan Cortez, and I'll be presenting on mobile makers. I'm the design lead and program facilitator for Mobile Makers Chicago. I have a background in architecture and urban planning, and yeah, super excited to talk about mobile makers. I've been with mobile makers for about 2 or 3 years now. Started during the height of the pandemic, and yeah, I've been with mobile makers for a while now, and we've been through a number of phases and a number of different um, points in the development of the organization. So, yeah, super excited to talk about it. Um, so I'll talk a little bit about where and how mobile makers started first. So, mobile makers was started by Maya Bird Murphy. She is our founder and director. She had developed this during her thesis project for her master's in architecture at the Boston College of Architecture. Um, she developed this idea as she was concerned with the diversity in the industry of architecture and urban planning, um, and had thought about how the lack of diversity would have some kind of implication or does have some kind of implication to the industry and eventually the built environment. And so, especially her growing up in Chicago, in the suburb of Chicago, Oak Park, a city or a suburban town known for having a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright projects. She had witnessed firsthand the kind of lack of diversity, especially at a young age, with the kind of education, the kind of design and architecture education that she was in. And so, as a response, she had developed some kind of idea that um, architecture and design education could be more accessible could, through some kind of truck. And I'll show some pictures of that later. But this truck would kind of then push the organization or this idea that architecture and design can be um, accessible to younger audiences and to a broader group of audiences throughout the city of Chicago. Um, and so with that, would it be like a date? But with that, she full-fledged started the nonprofit organization in 2017. Um, she had started with a truck, but now we have a space now, which is still under construction for the most part. Right now, we're actually going through a build out, developing the actual rooms that the students would be in. And so we'll hopefully have more pictures of that to share in the future, but should be completed sometime this year and actually this spring semester. So super excited with that. That's also a way for us to bring students in from across Chicago and for them to actually have a space to work on their own project and be a part of a space with where they can feel that they can learn in a safe space. But with that, mobile makers, a lot of us come from usually an architecture and art and architecture background, but we have this shared mission of seeing this organization as a way to create programming that not only introduces but develops that sense of agency for change within their community by teaching them skill building and design focused um, ideas and concepts that would eventually lead them to better understand their built environment and how they can change it. And so, but that's I think one part to Mobile Makers Chicago. I think as a younger grassroots organization, I think we've learned a lot of um, um, I think there's some definitely some interesting aspects of running this organization that Maya could definitely speak more about, but from my experience, especially during the pandemic and I guess these times, um, there's there's a lot of projects that we had to take up and explore and see, and also help us define what this organization could be and should be. Um, but I'm gonna go through a few pictures and kind of explain more so of some of our workshops. So, um, this is one of the workshops that we had in our space without any of the walls yet. Um, and you can see we've actually done some design build projects as well, which you can see at the back, these orange shapes. We haven't done a whole lot of design build projects yet, to be honest, and maybe honestly, we might not need to as often, just because we're still very much so focused on youth programming and some kind of educational programming throughout the year. But that's, I guess, a great example of where or what our organization has done. We've partnered with a museum to create some kind of fun outdoor sculptures or seating, and that's what came out of it. And honestly, has been a great example um, for the students that we bring in, for them to engage and kind of see the project be built, and that this is something that they can do. But yeah, going back into some of the workshops that we've done, here be a few pictures, but and here at the bottom you'll see our space actually. Oh, wonder what happened there. Bottom here, you'll see a picture of our space actually. It's quite empty right now without the walls, but that space is under construction. So yeah, so these are a few snapshots of the different workshops that we've had. Some in our space, some in architecture offices, some of them in the cultural center, and I'll talk more about that as well later. Um, but yeah, we've our workshops. Um, we've done a number of different workshops, and there's a number of different variations to it. Um, and I'll definitely talk to you more about that later. But as you can see, we usually like to either do it inside or do it outside. We try to give them a variety of experiences during the workshops, but as well as that um, that they're out there, they're it's hands-on, and they're going through somewhat of the same processes or design process or thinking that we would do in architecture school or design school. Um, so yeah, I can move on. A little bit of the truck. So right now, during the winter, it's a little bit hard for us to bring out the truck. But we usually like to bring the truck out for pop-up engagements or temporary engagements, or site activations, or what we call maybe summer activations. And so this is a great example um, of an event that we went to during the summer. This is in Overton Elementary School. We brought out the truck, and the truck usually, I guess I could have talked a little bit more about the truck. The truck um, is it's a postal service truck, U.S. postal service truck that's been retrofitted to include a number of different materials and retrofitted to house a lot of the materials that we would have or need for workshops. I believe I have some more pictures here, but the idea of that is that we can bring it around and use this as a tool to not only have or provide the materials, but also as a tool to show the audience, how they can learn about these different design and generally a broad set of knowledge in architecture and design. And so you can see here, this is kind of a great shot of it being clean, but when we're in these pop-up activations, there's usually a lot of kids running in and out. They're drawing on all kinds of different things, and we usually like to bring a number of different activities. And so they can kind of pick and choose which activity they'd like to do. And those activities tend to be, again, design or architecture related. But yeah, and then we have a lot of these storage units for to kind of house a lot of those activities. So yeah, this is our space. This is a rendering of our space or what we plan our space to be completed as by the end of this spring semester. And so this was a way for us to have more consistent programming for students, as well as for students for youth, especially from the neighborhood, to come in and feel like there's, a space for them to learn and create something. And a little bit about it, I guess it's hard to see, but on the left side, we'll have some kind of fabrication lab, a way for them to actually use tools and build larger projects potentially, but and house more of our 3D printers and laser cutters for them to use. And then we'll have a classroom for them, and as well as a conference room. So it's not a huge place or space, but we're trying to make it as flexible as possible so that we can house even larger groups of students that we would sometimes take in actually. And so here are some topics that we like to hit on during our workshops. Sometimes it depends on what kind of workshop we're working on, but generally within our programming and our workshops, we like to maintain the idea that architecture and design and urban planning has some kind of agency within these themes, these topics, these issues that are real and can be realized. But I think one of the important things is that we are providing some kind of understanding for them that they can engage in these topics through architecture and design. Yeah, and so I guess I can talk about, here's some statistics. And I didn't talk about it too much, but we also do have a branch in Boston now. Is Maya can definitely talk more about it, but this was a partnership with the Boston Architectural College, and that's how we were able to set up that branch in Boston. It's still a growing organization there as well, but the idea is that Chicago is the headquarters and Mold Makers is that umbrella organization. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of activity happening in Boston now. They've partnered with the city as well, and we're translating as much as we can of how we've structured our programming and partnership here into Boston as well. So wanted to talk about more about a programming, this very specific program that I had done more recently. Um, we usually do a number of different programmings at the same time, and we split up and focus on one of them. And so this was one of them that I focused on. And yeah, this is, I guess, the main thing about this one is that it was one of the longer workshops or educational programming that we've done. Sometimes they might be shorter, sometimes they're a lot longer, but this was one of the longer workshops that we've done, and that actually, how do I explain it? Required a lot of partnership and planning. And as you can see, it says CAB. So we partnered with Chicago Architecture Biennial for this, as well as, I guess, DCASE, Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. So we were in the Cultural Center's Learning Lab where we held this workshop. So again, we do a number of different programming, but and a lot of different, I guess you can say, educational. Doesn't always have to be programming, but we do provide some kind of activities outside of just actual workshops. And so here you can see some of the other educational educational aspects that we are working on with CAB as well. So the Youth Council, as you can see here, is one of them that we actually brought students in to the building, but we were working on a number of different things such as student competitions and this curriculum toolkit, which I can't necessarily talk too much about, but the idea of that is that students outside of Chicago or after the biennial, there's a way for students to engage with architecture in the city or the biennial and the projects within the biennial. Okay, so yeah, again, the biennial was interesting because it took a lot of different kinds of partnership to make this happen. But if not familiar, CAB is the Chicago Architecture Biennial that happens every 2 years. They host a number of different installations, and they may have a theme or topic for each year's edition. And so this year they've partnered with us to host a youth council programming workshop for 10 weeks that ran from towards the end of the school year into the summer. So it was more sort of a summer workshop for the students. And we were in the Learning Lab Center, which you'll see here on the top image, and we'll have more pictures of that. But the idea is that the students would be able to be actual participants as well, or respond to the CAB edition. And so they got to kind of reimagine the Learning Lab Center as a third space. So that's basically the brief of the curriculum. They get to engage with architecture I guess in a sense of how CAB would engage with architecture. And so here you can see this isn't their installation, but basically they had a chance to work together and go through the design process and reimagine the space of how they would want it to be for themselves. And so the Cultural Center is also another unique aspect to this programming, in that the Cultural Center hosts a lot of different cultural events in the city. So this is just one room in this large building. And in this room, they were able to, it's called the Learning Lab Center. So it's open to a lot of youth and to a lot of designers and artists as well. But in this case, it was theirs for a few months for them to reimagine the space and create some kind of installation for them to invite more youth alike to engage in the space. So here you can see them go through a number of different phases of trying to come up with some ideas of what the space should have or what the space should be. And towards the end, they came up with this long running bench that would house a lot of different activities, such as um, studying or working on, or just hanging out in general. That this bench could do all of that. And so they thought that, you know, the space would be a lot more fun if it was more flexible, and that a space that they are free to do a number of different things at the same time. But most importantly, have a space that's comfortable and fun to be around. And so this is these brown kind of objects are actually the objects that they've came up with. There was actually a company that developed these benches that can move and expand, contract and move around. And it was kind of perfect for them to have that. So that option. And so they're able to kind of move around these supposedly benches and create these different and unique spaces. And so you can see this table, and there's some other tables on the side that might not be able to see it. And so, yeah, again, a flexible space for them to work on a number of different things. And yeah, and so with that, we like to work with, when, you know, we were working with them for 10 weeks, we were able to keep them at hand and give them some more opportunities to talk about their ideas and kind of go through a phase of being a designer, of presenting their ideas a number of times and it being questioned as well. So this is a picture from our design summit event. Another thing that we also do related to the programming and events aspect of our organization. And so they had a chance to speak at that event that we hosted. And yeah, they got to speak with actual designers around the city as well, and you know, become a part of that community. And as we always told them, you know, this is, you know, we call them designers, you know, this is an actual experience that a designer might go through. And so experiencing that at a young age is quite interesting. And surely enough, a lot of them have already been interested in design. And so getting to see it firsthand in high school, they're mostly high school students, was great. So again, some main themes that we like to focus on. And again, these are always sometimes changing and developing. Third spaces is one of the bigger topics that we like to teach in our workshops or in our with our curriculum. The idea of that they can fail, you know, if it doesn't work, it's okay, you know, learn and move on. And again, how their skills that they're building and the concept that they're learning, how that builds into their everyday lives and into, you know, their higher education if they do go to college, or, you know, once they go into their career. This, you know, learn this from a young age and being able to practice and learn it and carry it with them as they continue on to their educational and professional career. So, oh yeah, here's some more images of the Learning Lab Center. So it's open for the most part. Right now it's closed now, I believe, but it was open for anybody to come in. And we would host other activities within the Learning Lab and within the CAB Youth Council project. And so we would have activities for younger audiences. And yeah, there's just some more program facts, I believe, for last year, 2023. So we reached mostly ages 14 to 18, but those are with our programs. Outside of our temporary engagements, we usually reach out or are around younger audiences for our pop-ups and temporary engagements, but we like to keep our programs free as much as possible, or if not, it's always been free. And we do often look for ways to provide stipends for participating in the program. And so yeah, so that's kind of pretty much our program facts. And we do have some recurring students as well from other programs. And so as we develop our organization and we do more of our programming, we learn and we develop how we would want to continue our workshops and programs. I think there's always a learning process for us as well as the students. And so always looking to become better at that, so that we know how to better reach them and how to better teach them. As well as I think there's always a feedback as teachers. We're always also as students learning from them, and it's always interesting engaging with them and sharing them these ideas as we move on. So that's pretty much it. Again, I just showed the CAB Youth Council workshop that I've done. We've done a number of different workshops, but this was one of the more recent and major workshop or programming that we've done, or that I've especially done. But we do have a number of variations to our workshop curriculum. So sometimes we would have it in our space, and we would have done summer and fall programming there, which were anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, 2 days to weekly meetings, and a number of different ages. So anywhere from 12 to 18. And with that, our workshops are based off, or our curriculum are based off those ages and the duration. So usually for younger audiences or younger students, it's a bit more simple. It's a bit more fun, to be honest. And then for older students, there's more of a developed sense of the topic that we're engaging in. So, so yeah, I think that's something that we are continually trying to develop and learn. But all that being said, it wouldn't be possible without developing strong partnership with other youth organizations or educational organizations throughout the city, as well as the city developing some kind of relationship with the city to help make these programming happen. And I think that being said, I think we would mostly I think we've been successful because of these partnerships, and with that, it's always being engaged with community and stakeholders within those communities. Again, you can definitely follow us on Mole Makers on our website, Mole Makers Chicago, or on our Instagram. Maya likes to definitely update the Instagram a lot with what's happening on a weekly basis. So as well as on Facebook, but I think these are some of the forms that we actually use to reach new students or parents even. But yeah, we'll definitely have updates, and definitely a lot of updates coming up, especially with this new space. being completed, and with that, new programs happening within that space. And so yeah, follow us and yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions or like to partner up on some kind of programming engagement.